they're coming for open swim, probably not doing all those steps. In fact, I don't think we are, if ever, we're letting the kids in to swim or letting the family in to swim after we've declared guest or resident, and then if they come back a bunch, then we'll create a meeting for them.
Is that information that's being gathered helpful to understand some of the questions we're asking about how many pillows, people are occupying?
It could be. We probably don't have that level of data available to us. And to be honest, I think we can't adopt something that's outside of this methodology. Like, the methodology is basically the legal backing that gives the district the foundation to adopt an SDC. So if it's not in here, we can't really swing around too far. We have to kind of stay true to this or underneath the maximum allowable. We have leeway up into the maximum amount, but we can't deviate from this. And everything that we choose to adopt, everything that you may choose to adopt, has to be in our resolution, which right now it is, but we'll have to update the resolution depending on how the board feels about, this conversation or subsequent conversation, which is fine. We work with Eileen and we get the resolution done, and it's ready to be enacted at our public hearing, if that's the road we want to go down. I think we can kind of get back to, I think, our three options. So I know it's easy to get sidetracked on this.
So, Skylar, there's a recommendation, or if it's not a recommendation, it's just the data shows the numbers for and I'm on page 8. The numbers for single family, multifamily, and mobile home, and then we could use the dwelling unit or the rent or the lodging unit number instead of the multifamily, single family, that sort of thing.
Correct.
So what do you recommend we do? Do we just have one number, or do we have 3?
Well,
go ahead.
So I would just say, I just want to sort of state, because I know I've brought up some challenges or issues with it, and I'm very pro SDC. I just want it to be, whatever we decide to be, completely defendable, or defensible. I'm not sure which it could be, but I just want to make sure we can defend it and that it's reasonable for our citizens. That's my, and so I actually don't have any issue with the methodology in any of this. This all seems really sound to me. It seems fine. The part that is causing me pause is that the total SDC that the maximum that we can do is this $9,000 number, 9,000 and some change, right, per residential equipment. My challenge with that is the current SDCs for Seaside, if we just look at Seaside, City of Seaside, currently all of the combined SDCs, water, sewer, parks, and transportation, are $9,400. So my concern is it does not seem reasonable to me, just as a citizen, that Parks and Recs would double the amount of infrastructure costs that we're charging to move. That doesn't sort of meet a reasonable test to me. The other challenge I have with that is within the $9,400 that the city currently charges, there already is $1,700 for parks.
That's city parks, right?
It is city parks. But as a citizen, I would say, wait, I'm getting charged $1,700 for parks, and now there's this new thing for $9,000 for parks and recreation. So that even more doesn't meet the reasonable test.
It's a straight face test.
Right, and so that to me is the challenge that I'm running up against. I have a little bit of heartburn around those project lists also, which Skylar and I talked about, and whether or not, like, do they appear on somebody else's property, or, again, just for, there's a reasonable rationale, but it's still whether or not that's going to raise people's concerns.
What if we took that, if at the city's level for parks is $1,700, why don't we Why don't we just deduct that from that 9,235 and push it?
Still seems disproportionate to me,
Does?
that even that, but I like the idea of a methodology like that, Mike, because part of the problem is, I don't like the idea of just saying, well, we're only gonna charge 50%. Because if the whole idea here is that we've got solid math to tell us what we're trying to build towards.
Yeah, that's true.
Why are we just discounting it?
Then we need to fix the math.
Right.
Can I add just a tiny bit of context too, because I think this is important, and a discovery that we didn't necessarily have when we were doing the methodology. I knew that we would not be collecting this ourselves, like our partners with the city and the county would be collecting, and you guys know a little bit about that. But what has become more apparent to me is how that gets collected. So the developer goes to the city and is paying for permits, right? And that's when they get charged the SDC. So the invoice looks like, you know, the different line items or whatever the cost, and they have the SDC. Well then, you know, to Celeste's point, she brought this up, what's it gonna look like for a developer when they see two park SDCs, one for the city of Seaside Parks and one for SEPRD Parks. And I think that was why we got the concerns from the city, was because they were concerned about their staff being basically the collector of some pretty new news, maybe bad news. They might be surprised. They might have to do some conflict resolution in those situations. And from what I understand, sometimes those conversations with developers are not always super fun anyways. So I think part of where we may have not hit a home run in this process was getting the city fully on board what we were going to collect. And I think we did that. We didn't do that because we're a standalone government entity and we can do our own thing. The ORS gives us power to enact SDCs, but maybe there's a level of partnership that we missed the mark on. And maybe this is an opportunity for us to kind of demonstrate a higher level of partnership through the project list and the collection process that maybe gives them some comfort and makes us feel a little bit more grounded.
I see, in my brain, I would just like to go through your questions 1, 2, 3. So for one, which is the project list question, the only one that I see that is very definitely an overlap, because they are already developing it, is the North 40 Sports Complex. They have already got an architect, they've already got funding, they're building it. I mean, yes, but like they're definitely further down that. They're going to have that done before we even get remotely close to something like that.
Yeah.
Is there something that we can replace that with?
So we didn't put it on there as a competitive race to see who can get it done first. What we put it on there as is looking in the historical context of the district. There are projects that have been a collaboration between the city and the Park and Rec District and the school district. And Broadway Park is a really good example. Our reasoning for putting it on there was that it's possible that we could be asked to be a partner in that project. Maybe not to the level of funding that the city is going to be obligated to, but maybe a lesser level, and that will be perhaps the managing partner of that sports complex. The city doesn't seem, from what I have been told, they're not really in the business of managing sports fields and practice schedules and competition schedules and moving fences and nets and all those types of things. And so our desire was to be financially prepared, if possible, to contribute to that, as we were expected to contribute to Broadway Park, like the original Broadway Park, and the returfing through some of these funds.
Am I misremembering about, so I thought the SDC money could only be used for infrastructure, not...
It can't be used for like staff or ongoing maintenance, but it can be used for infrastructure. So
if the park is already built, so let's just hypothetically, city gets it done next 2 years.
Sure.
There's no way that we're raising this amount of money.
Correct.
aggressively
However,
for that.
if in, let's say, 2040, the city says, hey, you're the managing partner of the park, we need to returf the field and we need to redesign it because this trend is different or this trend is different, we'd like you guys to pay for 50% of it, then we could use SDC funds for that.
But I also thought SECs could only be for new things, no?
Anything that adds capacity. So
Okay.
if the improvement can be justified, that it's adding capacity, like a new aquatic center, even if we built an aquatic center that looked a lot like the one that we have now or was similar in square footage, if we can make the case that it adds capacity, which obviously it would because it'd be more efficient, maybe it'd be deeper in one end, maybe it'd have features that this one doesn't have, it's gonna add capacity. Anything that adds capacity is justified.
Okay.
We can only pay for staff as it relates to the SDC process itself.
Right.
So we can pay, when the SDCs come in, we can pay for staff's time in putting this process
Is the
together.
city asking for, do they collect a fee for us to get ours?
Sorry, say that again.
So the money flows through the city to us. Do they take part or
Yes,
fee or?
so we haven't
percentage or-
ratified the IGA, but, they are gonna take either a percentage or a flat fee from every transaction. Same with the county.
Okay.
What's the window that they're negotiating? 5%?
Oh, it's under 5%. I think
Okay.
it's in between 3% and 5%. The one that we have with the county. To be honest, we were pretty much done with the IGA with the county, and we were hoping to use that as sort of a template, just with the city. I don't know if they're gonna agree on the same terms. We're the only special district, that the county would be collecting SDCs for. So this was kind of new for them. They know about it, and it'll be fine, but, the city's obviously collecting already, so they kind of know the process.
So the pool replacement is listed at 32 million, is that a legitimate number?
So, it's as legitimate as, our expertise and what our architects and project managers will offer us for free advice. We pulled, other places like North County Rec District in Nehalem, there's some other, and, I remember working with Brandon on this project list, Brandon Dole at the time, and, it's our best guess at what a new comparable aquatic facility might cost. Obviously, Nehalem's was less expensive, I think
But
it
you
was
also,
like 16 or 18 million maybe.
I thought it was 14.
14.
Yeah, and
But
mine
you also
started
had
at
a-
14. Future
Yeah.
costs of all the things.
And this, I think, number includes, the demolition or removal of our current facility, which they didn't, in fact, it's not in that $14 million. They were able to build.
I mean, when you look at this project list, of the $12.4 million,
It's all pool.
it's all pool, because the pool eligibility percentage is so much higher, right? And I can't remember exactly why that is. Why, do you remember, Scott, why it's such a higher eligibility percentage? I can't remember.
There's a good reason. I'm wondering if it's just contained somewhere within that data near the.
Even removing some of those projects doesn't really impact the 9,000, it's not gonna impact that $9,000, it's not gonna move it very much.
I concur. I was trying to address the optics.
Yeah, the optics, I agree.
Because, again, Joe Schmo, developer, gets his list of, what am I paying for?
And-
North 40, North 40.
Right, well, and I agree with you, and I guess my preference would be to strike that. My understanding is that if the project list changes down the road, that's okay. So we could add it if we were asked again for the North Fork, like,
Absolutely.
it's not generating
Or,
that much in the calculation for
or
us.
can we just call it sports complex? Does it have to be North 40?
I think we
Because
can,
that could be money towards Broadway, that could be money towards, the North 40, that maybe we put money towards Wahana. Like, does it have to be North 40?
I don't think it does. I think we just need to be prepared to answer questions, like, and the same with the other ones. If someone said, hey, where's the new neighborhood park north? You know, what are the locations that you're looking at? We need to have some answers to that. It can be ambitious, but it can't be pie in the sky ambitious. That makes sense.
I mean, it would make me feel better if it didn't say North 40. But I'm
That's fine.
one more.
Sports complex. I think that's, yeah, that's fine.
So I have the optics question. Help me understand, that, city has Daycare Park, Estuary Park, Cartwright Park, et cetera. But those are already defined spaces. So why do they still have SDCs? Are those all gone now because they've been developed?
They're constantly
I
selecting.
think, yeah, I mean, SDCs, look at them like our permanent tax rate. I mean, I think once you have the ordinance in place, almost every agency is gonna continue to collect in perpetuity. What needs to be updated is your project list and what you're using the resources on. But you can continue to collect forever. I don't have great transparency on what the city is doing with their SDCs. It may be available, I'm not sure. It just hasn't been something, it's not something that I'm familiar enough with to speak to it. The only thing that I know that they have used SDCs on is for improvements at parks, like replacing equipment that needed to be replaced, and also for other projects, like when Broadway Field was done the first time, converting it from grass to turf. I know from information I got from Mary and from the old city manager that they used at least part of their portion of the expense came from SDCs. And I have no idea what amount is in their SDC piggy bank right now or previous, or what they're planning on using it for.
So how this functions is we start collecting SDCs and they're gonna trickle in month by month, depending on when permits are granted and so on. So then we're setting up a separate account to account just for the SDCs that we receive and the expenditures of those funds.
Yeah. And I mean, the expenditures would only be for legal compliance until we got to the projects.
Right.
And then we'd have to really, make sure that that eligibility rate is maintained, because we can only use a portion of the funds available for the projects.
So what's your recommendation, Scott?
Okay, well, I've obviously, given this a lot of thought. I personally feel like, the district is better served demonstrating a higher level of collaboration and support from the city before we proceed. And I think that we're not that far away from that. I think what would go a long ways is towards establishing some shared vision on the project list, and identifying which projects might be in duplicate or need to be relabeled or repackaged in a way that's more understood. I think that we should have, one of the things that the city brought up that concerned them was that we didn't have a process for a waiver or that type. So I think we need to have that firmed up, whether the district wants to say, we'll hear those things on a case-by-case basis, or we're not going to have waivers, however you want to do it, but I think we need to have that a little more buttoned up. I honestly think outside of those two things, I don't think we're super far away from we're feeling like we're pretty close, I think if we
Well,
can.
in the percentage or rate.
Sure, but I think if the project list, if we're gonna go on the project list route as, in terms of like modifying that or changing that in some way, then I think that will change the number, at least a little bit, so we can wait until that point to have that discussion about the percentage. That's my opinion.
Is there, waiver language already, like, does the city have waiver language in there?
It's my understanding that they don't, because when they adopted SDCs, it was before kind of the housing crisis that we're in. I think that they adopted an ordinance at some point before they began this partnership with the North 40 project to have people be able to get their SDCs waived. So we could look at that language. Our colleagues in Bend and at THPRD have waiver language or process that folks can request waivers or reduce
I feel like
SDCs.
copy, paste, as long as.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think that that's gonna be too challenging. I think we just need to decide if the board wants to have something in the ordinance that says affordable housing is gonna have the opportunity to have their SDCs waived, and what that opportunity looks like. Do they have to apply, come before the board, write a letter, you know, what is gonna get them down that road? Or if we're just gonna have a blank waiver for anything that says it's affordable housing.
I don't know that, like, any of us are necessarily, like, legally writers, other than Celeste. I would personally like to see what other people are doing. Like, bring me 3 options of how they're doing it, and smoosh those together to make something that works for us.
Well, I'm a fan of granting individual waivers, but like Celeste said, that has to be done through a carefully crafted list of
Yeah.
reasons.
What if,
Criteria.
we use
Yeah.
language instead of waiver, you know, kind of implies, okay, you don't pay anything. But what if we look at a reduction? Maybe we can have a scale or
An
something.
adjustment, something.
An adjustment, yeah, you could call it an adjustment. But you need parameters for that in order to be accurate.
Right.
Well, I have 2 questions. So on the bottom of page 8, there is, exhibit 9, the comparisons, and it is just a single-family residence, but it's got all those numbers, and I know the Sunset Empire one is way, to me, it's way high. But is that helpful information for what you're looking for, Catherine?
No, Steve, sorry, this is, the discussion is about whether or not there are situations where we would waive the SDC fee. And, my thought is, rather than trying to necessarily reinvent the wheel, since I'm not a legal writer and can't think of all of the things, why don't we steal from other people in Park and Rec that may have already thought of all of these things? And then
Sure.
smoosh it together to make it make sense for us.
Yeah.
Well,
I can work on that and maybe give the board some options of what other agencies are doing.
Well, the second part of my question is, you know, exhibit 11 on page 10, and I'm still trying to understand this thing, but, when you look down in the last third, you know, they've got the minimum fee and the maximum fee. Does the minimum have to be 92.14 and change? See,
So I think.
the minimum fee versus the maximum fee, I mean, and so they're giving us a range, and they're explaining in the paragraph above how they come to that. Does it, when we're looking at a builder or the public saying, hey, you know, SDCs for Cartwright Park, well, never mind that statement, but if they're looking that we're doing city park SDCs, and now we're doing Sunset Empire Park and Rec SDCs, you know, in this day and age when money is, you know, tight and gallon of gas is how much, you know, out of pocket. And so I just want to make sure that we are showing our patrons that this is something that will benefit you, and it is something that is normally done, and we have not been doing it, so we're now getting on the wagon. And then, you know, do we need to follow this minimum 9214?
Well, I think it's a little bit apples to oranges too, I think, because I think what this chart is saying is that this is a different methodology. So to begin with, it is a per unit, like per house you build, is the fee. The one you're looking at here is meant to scale according to the square footage of the unit. So a minimum only relates to a minimum, like a tiny house, right? Like a 900 square foot house. So they're saying a 951 square foot house would get a fee of 9214, whereas a 2,500 square foot house would get 24. But those numbers seem off to me, Skylar. We might have to go back to the consultants because I'm not understanding how their minimum fee is identical to the residential per unit fee. Because the per unit fee of 9215 assumes 3.18 occupants, I think. So I'm not sure how this, in other words, you would expect if the per unit fee is $9,200, you would assume that it's in the middle of small units and big units, right?
Yeah.
And instead, they have the smallest unit being the same fee and charging a lot more for a big unit.
Sure.
Do you see what I mean?
I do.
So I think their math is actually off on this. I don't think they took into consideration the multiplier of people per household. Because it seems like that small house, you assume one person in that household, that it would be about a third the cost of the per unit residential. So I'm not sure how they got their math numbers. So I do have a question about that. That seems like something they should go back and look at. And that might even ease us because a lot of our affordable housing is going to be smaller footprint houses, right? Like, I don't feel so bad charging $20,000 to somebody that's building a mega mansion at the beach, right? Like, that isn't as big of a concern as impacting our people that need affordable housing.
I wonder what the history of the city's STCs, I expect that they've adjusted it over time. I wonder where they started and, you know, what benchmark they have been working from.
I did a little bit of checking on that. So I do have some history. I did look that up because I was curious about that too, Mike. By the time of the 2004 Parks Master Plan, Resolution 3264 established differentiated rates of $325 per residential unit, $230 per tourist accommodation unit, and $140 per required off-street parking space for a commercial or industrial development. So
20 years ago?
that was 20 years ago.
The Parks Master Plan
When they
decided that.
It looks like,
We did not decide.
according to AI, that's when it looked like the SDC,
Oh, okay.
or at least this.
That's what it was.
Started, yeah.
So Les, in your conversations with SEA, what's their timeline for our master plan?
I haven't talked to them. I haven't heard.
Since, Sid was months ago,
Right,
so.
I haven't
Last time.
heard, yeah. I don't know if you've talked to them.
Do you have a sense for?
He emailed our group asking for an update on our strategic plan. This was probably at least a month ago, though. And I think we were kind of, the feeling I got was that he was waiting for us to maybe get to this point in our strategic plan process or a little bit further before we picked up that ball and started running with it, just because there's a few things going on. I think Sid is ready to re-engage and wants to get that project done ASAP as well.
And the reason I ask is we're in the middle of a strategic plan, almost to the finish line. And we got this master plan that's hanging out there, and then there's something. So I wanna make sure that our documents are aligned, that this document has the same project list as the master plan, as the strategic plan, whatever. Because I don't want us to look like we're just, Yosemite Sam on this thing.
And to be honest, like, our project list has to be in the master plan. It can't just be, like, the master plan is the
It's
communicative
the
piece.
star we're steering by.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
it is in there, or it was in previous iterations, and I know Sid knows that we
So
need to
at the
confirm
very
the
least, we
project
need to
list.
cross-reference
Yes.
with the master plan to make
Yes.
sure, but, I think that, that project list and the master plan are gonna be important, because they're the numerators that we're involved with.
Yeah, okay.
So what are we doing here tonight? Are we just saying, yes, we're gonna go forward?
We already did that.
We can't vote on anything, so.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, for me, I'm still the optics, I'm still worried about this idea that Parks and Rec is proposing to virtually double the total SDCs for our community.
Yes.
That to me does not mean a reasonable cut. But I'm interested in hearing what other people think. I mean, so the other SDCs, again, just as a reminder, include water, sewer, parks, and transportation and roads.
Based on the projects that they had listed decades ago.
Well, that's
No.
5 years.
Yeah,
Oh, every 5 years, that's right.
but it's the current SDCs. If you go and build a unit, you're gonna get charged about $9,500 right now.
I'm curious how their math is so much different than our math.
Well, probably, I'm guessing that the project list that they had originally and the cost of construction has just skyrocketed over the last decade.
Yeah, yeah.
I assume that that's probably, that they were just dealing with different numbers altogether.
What's a permit cost for a single-family home?
So,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's just kind of look at
Probably
Mary.
find out. Really.
do you have, insight into some of this that we're talking about with your history?
Mm-hmm.
Can we ask her, since this is a workshop?
One second, Kyle, looks like
Okay.
the cost to permit a new single-family home ranges from 1% to 2% of the total project valuation, usually landing anywhere in between $3,500 to $8,000 for standard builds.
My nephew just spent $85,000 on the permit.
On permitting.
In Portland.
85
$85,000 for the
before you
permit.
even broke ground. For the permit?
Mhm.
Well,
For a
it probably
house.
includes the
And
SDC.
it's
Yeah.
SDCs, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, nothing special.
What?
Yeah.
I have, it's been years since I've
Maybe
taken out a permit.
It's Iowa or something.
Middle of nowhere.
Skylar, I am wondering, what is the current square footage of our pool building? Do we know approximately?
I think it's in the master plan, in the draft master plan.
It's about 40.
It's on
You
several
should have
plans
gotten
showing
out when
square
you were
footage
given the
of
chance.
Mhm.
I can look.
Darren says 40-something.
I don't think it's gonna be far off from what the new build is suggested to be, which is almost 35,000, so I think 35 to 40,000 is probably a good guess.
Okay.
Well, I'm a little confused about what the board wants, so price is too high, that's what I'm hearing, and we want that price to be manageable for.
Well, and along those lines, if the numbers on this Exhibit 11 are incorrect, are numbers elsewhere incorrect still?
Well, I don't know about that, but, I think checking the math is fair.
Yeah.
So I would say, Skylar said he's gonna work with the city on the project list, yeah? That was your number one. Number 2 was intergovernmental coordination, transparency. I think that kind of goes into number 1. Number 3 was evaluating the potential waiver and exemption framework for affordable housing developments. I think the request was bring us back some examples. I think Celeste made the excellent point that we're all on board with pretty much, is that we want to have the framework so that we don't get sued, and put something in place for future. I think all of that needs to happen right before we even necessarily decide on, you know, are we doing 50%, 60%, 70%, whatever. But then also, as to Celeste's point, I do think she is correct that the math seems wonky. So that would want to be addressed before we all come back. Is that summarized?
Pretty good. One familiarity with some of the city, you know, Mary Blake is on the City Parks Advisory Committee. I know the city, if they were gonna do anything, you know, anything capital, it would probably be the North 40, but they have Cartwright Park where they still have not demolished the old school district building. And, they could develop something there. I can't see any real urgent reason for doing anything, but they do need to demolish it, and they could possibly use STCs to do that and open up that area of the park. They've talked about pickleball, they've talked about tennis courts, but that's just an example. That's only 2 things, and maybe now Estuary Park will get some improvement. I don't know how much you can improve it without taking away from the natural setting. You know, but I can't think of too many things the city needs to do for parks except mow the grass. I don't know what they're gonna spend money on. I know Cartwright Park needs new restrooms badly. So that's been talked about in the past too. I don't know, I think maybe we could look at these numbers and do reverse math, you know, decide what we think we can sell, and then
Well, that's
figure out the
exactly
way.
that's what I was looking at, like, I was just noticing, like, again, the biggest cost in getting to this $9,000 number is the new aquatics facility, which I think is justified to put in. We're due for a new facility at some point. The math that we've done, according, again, I'm just doing quick AI, and I'm not an expert in building costs, but we've gone to the high side. So we've calculated $900 per square foot when it says new commercial facilities range between 500 and 900. If we were to skew low to 500, it would put us at least closer to having a number that I think is defensible. That combined with a scaling, a corrected math for square footage, I think might make it more palatable and more in line.
As long as we have a structure by which we get to the number. I don't
That's right,
think
that's what I mean.
we can't just say, well, we think 5,000 is appropriate.
That's right.
And we need to say that this is based on income, based on property values, and see, whatever it happens to be, it has to be a mathematical thing, not just a roll of the dice by the board.
Yeah. So I do think, I mean, I'm wondering, I don't know how much the consultants are charging us to go back and review numbers or fix numbers. I do think there's near around the scaling math if they've got there. But if we plugged it in, again, reality, I don't think by the time we get to building a new pool that we're going to be at the lower end of things, but we would have to recalculate at that time.
Well, we can it's 5 years we have to reevaluate.
Anyway, right.
So
So
maybe we start
at that
and
place,
then go
start at a lower
bigger.
number that gets us to a number that's more. So I think is that reasonable to ask them to go back and do, or how, I don't know if they just have all this sitting in a spreadsheet someplace that they can just change.
I think all of this is reasonable to ask. I think we may have to amend the contract that we have or ask for some additional services, but the feeling that I got in our interactions, we've already probably taken more of their time than like their usual client, just because we've done the public hearing process twice, we've had updated methodology. That wasn't necessarily the district's fault. I think their goal is to help us get to an adopted SDC, and that's probably the board's goal too. So, we have a good relationship with John. He's the principal. I mean, his reputation is pretty, unsmudged.
Unvarnished.
Yeah, in government work. I think if we go back to them and say, hey, we need to look at this, we need to revise the project list a little bit, or we want to double check this map, I think they're going to be supportive of that effort.
Okay. Well, and I know when I talked to Skylar today, I mean, I read this, reread it multiple times, and so I was trying to track from Exhibit 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to, you know, the money, and I don't understand it. I mean, where do you get that number? And so maybe, you know, those are questions that, I mean, maybe there's a way. I mean, how did we get the 69 and the 91.45? Those are ones I asked Skylar on calculated SDCs on Exhibit 7. And, you know, why was the improvement fee different than on a previous page? And I just didn't see how the money, you know, when I was reading and looking at graphs, it didn't move fluidly so that my brain could say, oh yeah, I'm following the money. That was not easy.
So I would say I like the last idea of going with the low number for the pool versus the high number.
Those numbers for the
Well,
pool.
So instead of 900, if we did it at $500 per square foot instead of $900 per square foot, construction costs, which again, I'm just Googling what it says,
for the project list.
for a project cost, if you look at the project list, that puts that at, 30,000 times 500 per square foot. That puts it at the total cost at $17,500,000 for the total project, times the 0.3624. So it makes that number, instead of 11,597, it makes it 6,342. It's just going to bring the number down, so now the total calculation of the eligible cost is going to be reduced by about almost half. So instead of starting with that 9,200 number, it's going to be like 4,700 or whatever, $5,000 instead. And then if we take a square footage breakdown of that, the small house is going to be out, I'll just take a guess, $2,000 or $2,500. It just seems like it would be more reasonable in comparison to the rest of the SBC chart.
And we can always start there and then.
But the square footage analysis is just a cross-reference.
The square footage analysis creates a tiered system for charging
Right.
people. So if you are building a 900 square foot house, the median is the new $6,000 number, or whatever I said, that was $7,000 number. So that's the median. If you're building a small house, you're going to be below
But
that.
why can't we just bill it on the dwelling unit?
Well, that's
Why do we have to bill it on the square
because we were
footage?
trying to make it equitable.
But we can do the same thing on the dwelling unit number, right?
The dwelling
Rather-
unit number, right.
Rather than the square footage number.
Right, but the square footage number makes the people who are working people in our community who are building their first starter home, instead of charging them the same as the people building a $5,000 square foot house, it's just a tiered system. So that somebody who's building a little $1,000.
I
It
could
could
build
be an
a
addition.
5,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, or I can build a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
But if both contain 3 people, then it has the same impact on us.
But,
Well, except that this is, for equity reasons, this is a method that, from my research, is being more widely used to make the cost, the covering of the cost. It isn't a per person cost, it's a
The square footage cost.
affordability.
It's a size cost,
It's a way to judge the affordability factor for the people living there, with the assumption being that if you're living in a 5,000 square foot house, you can afford more.
Then you waive the waiver process?
And then, and I don't know, maybe and/or a waiver process, I'm not
I would
sure.
still do a waiver process. But I don't think we get to go, you get to be square foot and you get to be.
No, we gotta pick
One.
one, we gotta pick one.
So back to the first thing of choosing the lower amount per square foot, I would start there, because that affects all the rest of the calculation.
Mhm.
Right. So to me, that seems like it would be good is to go back and see where we end up with those numbers.
Sure.
And see if it seems like it's
And that
More
kind of automatically provides a waiver for the lower income builders.
or closer, right?
On that
Yeah.
tier.
Well, yeah, I mean, because
A
like
scale.
the starter home,
Right.
is gonna be more affordable for,
Could be an addition
yeah, it could be an addition.
or a remodel.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I will just bring up the other piece, because I do think there, like, in talking to Skylar, I think it would behoove us to have this, particularly be given the first reaction, we've opened a dialogue, which I think is fantastic with them about the SBCs. But I think it would behoove us to, if not get the city and the council on our side, at least get them to neutral through mutual understanding, I think would be important. Because the problem is that if we just start throwing out, we're gonna charge this, and here's what we're gonna do, and everybody, pay it whether they like it or not, I think it is putting too much ammunition in the hands of, people to get developers to, I mean, do we have the right to charge this? Yes. I would like to avoid backlash, given that we've had some peace with this board. And I think to do that, I think it would be good to open some dialogue, maybe with some strategic people, whether on council or through the city. And I know Skylar's already managing the city relationship, but I think that might be a place that us board members can help with.
Well, the notion of us managing the North 40 is really an attractive option.
So that's an interesting place to start. I think it's interesting, Mike, you had brought up the idea that they're already collecting fees for their parks, and what are they doing with that money? Like, is there something that where
We could
it's
joint
mutually
venture,
beneficial?
we could joint venture with the city probably on several
Does
different things.
Yeah.
They still have the Parks Advisory Committee?
I'm not,
Thing?
Mary Blake is.
Mary's on that.
Yeah, so it seems like it would be good to start opening those conversations so that when we get to the place, once we got calculations back and have things done, that we at least have people, like they may not, there are some people that may never be on board with what Parks and Rec does, but at least to get them to neutral so that it's clear that we've done our due
They're
diligence.
just an advisory board too, so we ultimately have to work with the city.
Well, the notion of I'm sorry, Sue.
No, you.
The notion of having a minimum fee is attractive for those people who don't build, but rather amend their current footprint. So if they add a bedroom or add this is not just for new builds, this is for residential permits to expand. And Mike had mentioned this, that's why I'm bringing it up, but, that minimum fee may be attractive if you're just doing a remodel on your house. As opposed to a new build.
Could we also discuss briefly, an appropriate timeline that the board would like this topic to return to them once maybe some of this, effort done? I think it feels like, there's gonna be a significant amount of work to sort of retool sort of our methodology. Some of that will be done by the consultant, some of it by us, but I'm wondering, we've already experienced quite a lengthy process for doing this, and I think it's great. The process is what it is, but I'd just like to get a better sense for what the board is hoping. Do you want this to come back to you in September and November by the end of the calendar year? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Feels that depends on the consultant and you.
Well, that's, if you give me too much of the responsibility to make that decision, I think it would work better for me if you set some harder expectations. I think the consultants will be cooperative, and like I said, they want to get us, when I reach out to them, they make time for communication and meetings and updated methodologies pretty quickly. You're right, and my time is busy, but I'd love, I mean, we're in the business of looking for wins right now. We've had a lot of, not losses, but a lot of just hard drawn out efforts, and I think if we can get to a win at some point in the near future, where this is adopted and we start collecting, I'd feel really good for staff and for board, and in 20 years from now, when Michaela Parker's the executive director, or whomever it might be.
She's going to space.
That's great, yeah. Well, if she lowers her standards to become interested in parking, right?
Well, she'd have to lower her standards to go into space.
There you have. She's
Cynical.
gonna open the first space park.
Okay.
Oh.
They can collect a lot of SDCs for.
There you go.
I bet the slide will be really interesting.
I think whoever it may be in the future will be rarely grateful for the effort that we had, and that they have a pot of funds available to do a project against.
Skylar, in the context of timing, when does the construction season start? When does the permitting start for construction?
That would be a question am not very equipped to answer. I know there's some contracting expertise in the room, but it's not for me.
I think it would be great if we can get this across the finish line before the end of the year.
Before the next construction season, before the next.
Well, building
Group of
starts in
developers
spring,
start
building
pulling-
starts in spring, when they start
But
pulling
when do they
permits in the
start
winter.
pulling
Yeah, in the
permits?
winter.
Yeah, I want to get this in before permits are pulled. Go ahead, Ken.
Once we pull the trigger, how long does implementation take?
So, we had the public hearing in April, and I think had things played out differently, we were prepared, and our partners were prepared to start collecting July 1. So,
Few months.
a couple months, but I mean, like I said, the IGA with the county is pretty much done.
Yeah.
The IGA with the city is, I don't think it's gonna be terribly complicated, because they're already collecting. We just need them to collect, and put the mechanism in place for them to collect for us. I don't think that's gonna hold us up. It would be nice if it's not December 28th, we adopt, and then we expect them to start collecting January 1.
Would the October meeting be doable for all the information changes and things?
Sure. I will say, what part of the timeline I should have stated is maybe it'd be in our best interest to schedule another
Workshop?
public hearing. No, we need another 90-day window. Anytime our methodology changes, so we may need to wait until, if we're gonna change the methodology, which sounds like there might be some changes that are needed, it'll have to be 90 days past that. So maybe
Shoot for September?
maybe we can have something back to the board in September, the board approves it, or we're ready to move forward. We schedule the 90-day hearing for, like I said, it has to be at the end of December or early January, but I think we're pretty close to hitting that January deadline, or end of the calendar year deadline.
Well, if we have to have a December meeting, we'll have a December meeting because this goes through.
Yeah.
Not only in Disney World, just throwing out there.
Space and Disney World.
Do you have a recommendation, Skylar, about how board members could be helpful in doing some of the community work, or what that might look like?
I would say, for me, I think what would be really helpful, and Mary's here, she's Parks Advisory. I think the questions about the Parks SDCs that the city is collecting is a fair and valid question for residents of the district to ask And they can start with Parks Advisory Committee members, they can start with city councilors, they can start with city staff. But I think that there is not a lot of understanding from us on what those funds are being held for, or what the projects that have been accomplished with those funds is. That's an easily solvable problem that the public should have transparency on. So I would appreciate that. I can go get those answers too, but I think coming from a citizen's perspective, it's more meaningful and might have a different weight than.
Is that
Staff to
appropriate
staff.
to ask city councilor or city staff or both?
Like I said, I think you may start with a Parks Advisory member, and if they don't have the answer, then maybe they want the answer. If I was on the Parks Advisory Committee, I would probably want to know too, so they might take it to they have a council representative, I don't know who it is. Patty. So they may take it to Patty, and then Patty can take it to the city staff and say, hey, we'd like to understand this a little bit better. And then they can get brought back down to us. I think the other thing that would be good, and we've had some of the discussion, but I just want to make sure the project list that we agree on, I'd like that to be, a warm and fuzzy feeling for everybody involved and not have the questions. I think questions are justified right now, but I think once we get to it, getting ready to adopt, so if the board has concerns about the project list that they haven't shared in this meeting, let's flush those out and make sure that everybody feels good.
City's project list on where's Webster, do you know?
I've never seen
No. So I think asking for the project list too would be good to ask.
Well, somewhere they've got a document like this.
Yeah, well, they're doing that
You know.
huge survey for 2050.
I know, but to do the SBCs, they have to update.
They had
the project list.
they had a Parks Master
Right.
Plan at some point, and that probably had the project list.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar enough with that document to know which projects were on there, what's been accomplished, what's not, but I think given that we're supposed to update those things every 5 years, and it's a little bit over 5 years for them, sarcastically speaking, I think we'd all probably benefit from having just a little more transparency. And we can use that information and say, okay, they're already planning on building a neighborhood park on the east side of Seaside, like over by the new, like the Blue Heron development. We don't need to have that on our project list anymore.
Yeah.
Or they're planning on fully funding the North 40 and then just transferring management of it to us. And we're never going to be on the hook. Okay, great, we'll take that off the project list. I don't know.
Just so you know, they do these coffees with the different counselors. This Saturday at 9:30 at the Beer and Wine House, Patrick Ansbro has his coffee with Patty. So it's this Saturday, but I don't know if he'd be equipped to answer questions without a heads up.
Sure. I'm just saying that's one area where communication, I think, would be really helpful, is if the board could take on some of that engagement. Doesn't have to be this Saturday.
I'm full up, so I'm taking myself off.
I'm full to pretty much, I can help out some of
And then after school starts.
I'm leaving town.
Anyways,
So
we'll get it done.
I got 4 things on my to-do list. I know Catherine had a few more, I want to make sure. So compare the project list with the master plan. Self-engage with the master plan. Check the math. Waiver framework, project list. Are there other things? Catherine, I think you had a couple more.
This is a really long time ago.
Well, I took notes on
The
that.
memory's the second thing to go.
See, what I wrote from what that list was, deal with the project list. Number 2 was the IGA, the process of an IGA and transparency. Number 3 was evaluating the waiver, wrote examples. And number 4 was we want a framework so in the future we're not sued. And then it was, what about reverse math, using the lower number for the pool for construction costs of 500 per square foot.
And you mentioned the city. The things that Tyler just said.
And I would prefer we accelerate that agreement where if we're gonna manage the road forward. I think that there's an opportunity here that we can, engage as partners with the city in maybe multiple ways, and that might be a good way to get in the door.
Tyler's on the committee.
And to be clear, the city hasn't asked us necessarily, like in writing, to do that. I'm part of my job is to read the tea leaves, not tea cards. And, I think that, I mean, the city has made it clear they're not in the business of programming at parks, they're not in the business of managing parks. And that complex, if it plays out the way that it looks like it's going to, it is gonna be funded, and it's gonna be a terrific recreation space for baseball, softball, soccer, and have some really nice park amenities in addition to the sports complex part of it.
That fits in nicely to the services we already deliver, so.
And if it's turf, which is something that we're all kind of advocating for to get more use out of it, it's not a lot, it doesn't take a lot of expertise, but we have the turf knowledge, we have the expertise to build the equipment, yeah. And so, anyways.
So are you gonna talk to Sid and, see what the timeline is for the master
Sure.
plan?
Yeah. Like I said, I think Sid's, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we've got lots of other stuff to do, but he's ready to go.
Yeah, we
Is he
need,
waiting on us for something?
So the last correspondence I received from him, I think he was kind of sort of waiting, and we kind of, I don't think we told him to stop. I think we just kind of said, we're at this point in our.
I can follow
in
up
our-
with him on that. I didn't realize they were waiting on us.
That's my recollection and my understanding.
Okay.
and what else do you need from the board?
Patience? No, you guys are doing great. I mean, honestly, like, this board, a hallmark of this board has been really thoughtful deliberation and, I think empathetic understanding. Before you adopt policy, you go really slow and you deliberate and you discuss it, and I appreciate that. And it does make my job sometimes more difficult than it would be if you just rubber stamped everything that we brought. But, I'm grateful for the engagement that you show, and I don't think anybody in the community could question that we haven't evaluated this and given it appropriate time and thought. Celeste shared earlier today that she's had some people come to her in the development world, and they've said, express some concern. So I would say if you have folks in that area, it's great that they're coming to individual board members. I think they should come to me or to the board as well and manifest those concerns in a public way, because we haven't heard the district, despite all of the public communication that we're required to do for the public hearings, we haven't heard anything from anybody. And that could just be that they didn't get the memos, that they didn't see the notices. That happens a lot, and then people come to you and say, well, I didn't hear about this, and so we want to try to eliminate that as much as we can get to people in that community beforehand and help them understand the reasoning for this, help them understand why our SDC is going to be different, what it's going to impact versus what they've already been accustomed to in the city. I think it's beneficial for us down the road.
What did we land on as a timeline?
Let's plan on this coming back to the board at their regular September meeting, which I think is, we moved to September 29th, a week later because of the ORPA conference. And if we are ready to move forward, then we can schedule a public hearing for 90 days past that at some point. If that works.
That means we'll have a December meeting?
December.
Potentially, yeah. But, I mean, it just has to be more than 90 days, so maybe we meet the first Tuesday in January for the public hearing, and that's the only thing that we're doing, and I don't know, we can discuss.
Okay.
If you want, and I'm open to meeting in December if that's what we
You
need to do.
I'll be gone December 29th.
I didn't, but.
I'll be out of town.
You're going to Turkey.
Yeah, and I think.
Oh, you said September 29th.
Yeah, September
You said
29th.
December, but you meant.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant
It's okay.
September.
I do remember that, yeah. So we'll, we need the, three of the other four to.
Come here. So then they can take all the blame on the vote.
Well, unfortunately, Kyle, there's public record of, their engagement with that on this topic over the last couple of years.
Okay.
Okay, now, my list was good, you're good, the board is good with that list?
I'm gonna use the AI tools that Zoom has built in to help me make sure that we capture all of this, so.
Make sure you use please and thank you, so that when the robots take over the world, they remember the Parks and Rec.
Well, I just today sent an email and I related to us, and I took out all the AI that they filled in, and I went backwards, and it did not want to erase. And I thought, you know,
We're already in the Terminator Matrix scenario.
like, I will speak for myself, thank you.
I'm just proud of you for sending an email.
Hey, whatever happened to your bears in your backyard?
What?
Whatever happened to those bears you had in your backyard? You still have
Oh, the
bears?
bears,
They were
She charged them
the short answer is I boarded the dog long enough, and they went away. That was the answer. The guy said, board your dog, get her out of there, so they're not coming to your yard.
Because of dog food, or are they attracted to your dog somehow?
Well, Teddy has an illness that
Makes him attracted to bears. That's a bad disease,
It
that's
is.
one I don't wanna have.
I mean, and we
Because
can
his
use
name's
more and
Teddy.
more time here, but I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do.
He's cursed with his name. You named him Teddy, and all the bears are like, I'm really interested.
Hey, I wanna see this teddy bear.
Okay, time to go.
All right, so are there any other comments from the board?
Well,
Time to go.
I had wanted to make sure
That's my
that
comment.
any input from Mary, because I mean, you guys are gonna go do what you have to do, and I'm gonna go talk to city officials. I need to know what I'm supposed to say. But I can talk to somebody else after we adjourn, especially since we've talked about Denny. But I had wanted to get Mary's input about all this alderall that we're doing.
Yeah, well, my compliments are to every single one of you. We started this process a number of times during my tenure, and we never got this far because of all the things that you were bringing up. But what Skylar is doing is that he's really understanding that relationship. And the difference is, when you compare rural communities, Swalton Hills is a big park and recreation district, and Bend is a city, to rural areas, and your SDCs are going to specifically your total service to the area versus to the city's broader piece. So there are all those nuances that are out of place. And you've got a big assignment because you have one of the best treasures that we have, the swimming pool, but also the school. So you're going to have the story behind it. And, when people will flinch when it comes to money, but it really is it opens up the opportunity of expanding the district. SDCs are another piece. They came on because of exactly this. Nobody wants to put the money up for the benefits, but we all want them because they make a difference. So this is contact sports, and you're being really really good about understanding all of it, and I applaud you for that. And we have some of the same questions when we ask the city folks about SDCs and where can we see it and how much are they and can we use them. So I would be more than happy to work with Skylar or any board member to be able to do that, because I was with sort of some of the people with the city, and I said, well, why can't they come to us? And they said, because we have the parks. And I said, but we have the services.
Yeah.
So and then we bump, and then we kind of come back, and then we weigh out, and what's more important, so it's an interesting piece, and you are being extraordinarily thoughtful, this is going to be really important, and again, you are farther along than what we ever got, and I applaud you, and I didn't want to drop in and say, well, why didn't you inform me? This is a complicated, and important, discussion that you're having on behalf of your community. And don't let it be swayed by a developer who's going to, cut and run, but being conscientious about small homes, and a waiver, but working with, your, obvious relationships. And that's all around, not just the city. And you have to understand that the city is going through all sorts of extraordinary changes in the leadership. They had 7 changes in full-time positions, starting with the city manager.
Well,
And our public
Spencer-
works director is
Spencer's
leaving. No,
No, Spencer's,
our public works is,
Public Works
Oh,
Director.
Public Works, okay.
yeah, Paul, and he was here for a brief second.
was Paul gone?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
I appreciate that, Mary. It's good to hear. It helps put it into perspective.
Yeah.
It has felt like a long drawn, it has been a long drawn, and kudos to Skylar, because he
Yes.
keeps us moving forward. So, but I appreciate hearing from you that, because it gives us some perspective.
Yeah.
That we're marching forward.
Yeah.
In a direction that.
And you're the best neighbors.
Yeah.
And good, relationships, and that's, and everybody wants that.
Right.
Thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
Any other comments from the board? All right, I'm gonna adjourn. I don't need a vote for that, so.
Thank you.
This was a little handout that we did for Neil Main today, but he wrote it, and that little picture was, taken